My husband's parents demanded I move out of our home because I ruined their retirement plans by getting pregnant. Now they're threatening to disown him if he doesn't leave me. Hey everyone. I don't even know how to start this, but I'm hoping that writing it all down will help me make sense of what's been happening. My life has turned into a nightmare over the last few weeks, and I'm desperate for advice or support from anyone who's been through something similar. My name's Emma, 28F, and I've been married to my husband, Jake, 30M, for just over 2 years. We've been together for a total of 5 years, and I honestly thought we had a rock-solid relationship. We've had our ups and downs, like any couple, but we've always been able to work through things together. Jake is the kind of person who's always there for everyone. He's the type who would give you the shirt off his back if you needed it. One of the things I've always loved about him is how loyal he is to the people he cares about, including his parents. I knew going into our relationship that Jake's parents, Susan and Tom, were very involved in his life. They've always been a bit overbearing, but I figured it was just because they loved him so much. Little did I know that their love would turn into something so toxic. Jake and I bought our dream home about a year ago, thanks in large part to his parents. You see, they co-signed the mortgage because Jake didn't have a long credit history, and while I was initially a bit wary of getting them involved in such a big decision, Jake assured me it would be fine. After all, his parents were financially stable, retired, and, from what I understood, just wanted to help us out. I thought this would be a temporary arrangement until we could refinance the house and get their names off the mortgage. Then, about 2 months ago, I found out I was pregnant. The pregnancy wasn't exactly planned, but Jake and I had talked about starting a family at some point. We weren't in a rush, but we also weren't doing much to prevent it either. When I saw that positive test, I was a bit shocked but mostly excited. I thought Jake would be too, and for a while, he was. We spent the first few days after finding out just basking in the excitement and imagining our future as parents. Jake decided to tell his parents about the pregnancy during one of our regular Sunday dinners at their house. I wasn't there because I was feeling a bit queasy and decided to stay home. I wish I had gone with him because, apparently, they were less than thrilled. When Jake came back home that night, he looked like he'd seen a ghost. He told me that his parents were upset and that they wanted to have a family meeting at our place the next day. I didn't think much of it at first, maybe they were just surprised by the news and needed some time to adjust. But when they showed up at our house the next day, it was clear that this was much more than just shock or surprise. As soon as they walked through the door, I could tell something was wrong. Susan was red-eyed and sniffling like she'd been crying all night, and Tom looked like he was ready to explode. We sat down in the living room, and that's when they dropped the bombshell. They were furious that we were having a baby because it ruined their retirement plans. Susan went on and on about how they had planned to travel the world in their retirement and how they had always counted on Jake and me to look after their house and pets while they were away. They said that by getting pregnant, we had selfishly thrown a wrench into their plans and that we should have consulted them before making such a big decision. Tom accused me of trapping Jake with the baby, saying that he knew I had always wanted to tie Jake down so I could mooch off him and his family's wealth. I was stunned. I tried to explain that this pregnancy wasn't planned but that we were happy about it and wanted to start a family. I told them that we didn't intend to disrupt their plans and that we could still help them out when needed. But they wouldn't listen. Susan started crying hysterically, saying she had wasted her best years raising Jake and that he was now betraying her by choosing me and the baby over his duties to them. Tom, who had been relatively quiet up to this point, suddenly exploded. He stood up and demanded that I move out of the house immediately. He said that I had no right to live in their house and that Jake should come to his senses and leave me before it's too late. He even threatened to disown Jake if he didn't leave me and the baby. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I was in shock, but Jake was furious. He stood up and told his parents that they were being ridiculous and that he wasn't going to abandon his wife and unborn child. Tom started yelling at Jake, saying that if he didn't get an annulment, they would cut him off financially and take him out of their will. They even threatened to force a sale of our house, since their names are on the mortgage. Jake refused, of course, and told them to leave. They stormed out, saying they'd give him a week to come to his senses before they took action. That was 2 weeks ago, and things have only gotten worse since then. Jake's parents have been relentless in their harassment. They've been calling and texting Jake nonstop, trying to guilt-trip him into leaving me. They've even shown up at his work, demanding to talk to him about the situation. Jake has been holding strong, but I can see the toll it's taking on him. He's exhausted, stressed out, and constantly on edge. It's like we're living in a pressure cooker, and I'm terrified that something's going to give. In the meantime, I've been trying to keep things together at home. I'm about 12 weeks pregnant now, and the stress is starting to take a toll on my health. I've been having more and more anxiety attacks, and I'm constantly worried about what's going to happen next. I don't know how much more of this I can take. Jake and I have talked about going no contact with his parents, but he's hesitant. He's always been close to them, and despite everything they've done, he still loves them. He's torn between his loyalty to me and our baby and his loyalty to his parents, who have been manipulating him for years. I don't blame him for being conflicted, but I'm starting to feel like I'm fighting a losing battle. We've also consulted a lawyer about our situation, specifically regarding the house. The lawyer confirmed that Susan and Tom do have some legal leverage since they co-signed the mortgage, but it's not as straightforward as them just taking the house away from us. If they try to force a sale, we have options to fight it, and Jake is prepared to take legal action if necessary. But that's going to be a long and expensive battle, and I don't know if we have the energy or resources to go through with it. Emotionally, I'm a wreck. I feel like I'm walking on eggshells all the time, trying not to upset Jake or push him too far. I'm scared that if I push him too hard, he might crack and give in to his parents' demands. I love him so much, but I'm starting to wonder if love is enough to get us through this. I'm also terrified of what might happen if Jake's parents follow through on their threats. If they cut him off financially, we could lose our house, and I don't know if we could afford to buy them out right now. I'm trying to stay strong, but I'm reaching my breaking point. I don't know how to deal with all of this, and I'm scared for my marriage, my baby, and our future. I just don't understand how two people could be so cruel and manipulative, especially to their own son. I guess I'm just looking for advice on how to handle this. Has anyone else dealt with in-laws this toxic? How do we protect ourselves and our marriage from them? Any advice or support would be greatly appreciated. Update 1. First of all, thank you all so much for the overwhelming support and advice. I didn't expect this post to blow up the way it did, but I'm really grateful for everyone who took the time to comment. I've read every single one, and I can't tell you how much it means to me to know that there are people out there who understand what we're going through. A lot has happened since my original post, and I wanted to give you all an update. After reading through all the comments, Jake and I sat down and had a long, hard conversation about our future. It was probably one of the hardest conversations we've ever had, but it was necessary. We both knew that we couldn't keep living like this. We had to make some decisions about how to move forward. Jake reaffirmed his commitment to me and our baby. He said he couldn't imagine life without us and that he was willing to do whatever it took to protect our family. It was such a relief to hear him say that, and I felt like a huge weight had been lifted off my shoulders. But we both knew that things weren't going to be easy. We decided to go low contact with Jake's parents. Jake has blocked them on all social media and is only responding to their calls and texts when absolutely necessary. He's also told them that he won't be discussing our relationship or the baby with them anymore, and that if they continue to pressure him, he'll cut them off completely. They didn't take this well, obviously. Susan had another meltdown, and Tom threatened to cut Jake off immediately, but so far, they haven't followed through on any of their threats. We've also started the process of refinancing the mortgage to get Susan and Tom's names off it. It's going to be a bit of a financial stretch, but we've decided it's worth it to get out from under their control. We've even talked about moving to a different city after the baby is born to put some distance between us and them. Emotionally, I'm still struggling. I have moments where I feel incredibly guilty, like maybe I really did ruin something by getting pregnant. But I'm trying to stay strong and focus on the future, not just for me, but for our baby. I'm also trying to be there for Jake, who's dealing with his own emotional turmoil. It's not easy, but we're taking things one day at a time. Thank you again to everyone who reached out. Your advice and kindness have made a huge difference, and I feel a little more hopeful knowing there are people out there who understand and care. I'll keep you all updated as things progress. Update 2. It's been a few weeks since my last update, and things have been a roller coaster of emotions. I wish I could say that everything has settled down, but unfortunately, it's been quite the opposite. Buckle up, because this is going to be another long one. After we made the decision to go low contact with Jake's parents, we had a few days of relative peace. I think Jake's parents were trying to regroup and figure out their next move, because they went radio silent for about a week. It was almost eerie how quiet things got, but I tried to focus on the positive. Maybe they were finally starting to accept that we weren't going to cave to their demands. Jake's parents did, in fact, follow through on their threats. We received a formal notice from their lawyer stating that they're initiating the process to sell our house. As soon as we got the letter, I felt like the ground had been pulled out from under me. Jake and I had been hoping that they were just bluffing, but now it was clear that they were serious. They were going to try to take our home from us, and I had no idea how we were going to stop them. We immediately contacted our lawyer, and he told us that we're in for a long, messy legal battle. The good news is that Jake's parents can't just sell the house out from under us, they need our cooperation to make it happen. The bad news is that if they're determined to force a sale, it's going to be a long, expensive fight. We're doing everything we can to prepare for the worst, but it's incredibly stressful, and I can tell it's wearing Jake down. On top of the legal battle, Jake's parents have ramped up their harassment. They've been showing up at our house unannounced, pounding on the door, demanding to talk to Jake. It's like they've completely lost their minds, they're acting like we owe them something, like Jake is still their little boy who needs to do what they say. We've had to call the police twice now to get them to leave. The police warned them to stop coming by, but I'm terrified that things are going to escalate even further. Emotionally, I'm at my breaking point. I've been having nightmares almost every night, waking up in a cold sweat, convinced that something terrible is going to happen. Jake is trying to be strong for me, but I can see how much this is affecting him too. He's torn between his love for me and our baby, and the sense of duty and guilt his parents have instilled in him since childhood. It breaks my heart to see him like this, but I know we have to stay strong for each other and for our baby. We've decided to put the house up for sale ourselves, so we can at least have some control over the process. It's a gut-wrenching decision, but at this point, it feels like the only way to escape the constant stress and fear. We're planning to move out of state as soon as possible and start fresh somewhere far away from all this drama. It's not what we wanted, but it feels like the only way to protect our family. Jake's parents sent us another letter through their lawyer, and this one was the final straw. They've decided to sue us for emotional distress because, according to them, our decision to have a baby has caused them significant emotional and financial harm. The letter was filled with all sorts of ridiculous accusations, claiming that we had intentionally gotten pregnant to spite them and that we had breached an implied agreement to remain child-free. I was beyond furious when I read that letter. How dare they try to use the legal system to bully us into submission? How dare they try to make it seem like our decision to start a family was some kind of malicious act? Jake was livid too, but more than anything, he was heartbroken. He kept saying he couldn't believe his parents would do something like this, that he never thought they would go this far. I told Jake that this was it, this was the final straw. We couldn't keep living like this, with his parents constantly looming over us, threatening to destroy everything we've worked for. I told him that I loved him, but I couldn't keep fighting this battle alone. I needed him to make a choice: either we go completely no contact with his parents and focus on our own family, or I didn't know if our marriage would survive. Jake was silent for a long time after I said that. I could see the pain and conflict in his eyes, and I knew how much he was struggling. But after what felt like an eternity, he nodded. He told me that he was done, that he couldn't keep letting his parents control our lives. He agreed to go completely no contact with them and focus on our future together. It was a bittersweet moment. On one hand, I was relieved that Jake had finally made a decision to prioritize our family. But on the other hand, I knew how much it hurt him to cut ties with his parents. Despite everything they've done, they're still his family, and I know that's not an easy thing to let go of. So, that's where we are now. We're in the process of selling our house and preparing to move out of state. We've blocked Jake's parents on everything: phone, email, social media, and we're working with our lawyer to fight the ridiculous lawsuit they've filed against us. It's going to be a long, hard road, but for the first time in a while, I feel like we're finally moving in the right direction. I'm still a mess. I have good days and bad days, and I'm trying to focus on the future and the baby. Jake has been incredible through all of this, and I'm so grateful to have him by my side. We've talked about getting counseling to help us both deal with the trauma of what we've been through, and I think that's going to be a crucial part of our healing process. I know that this isn't the end of the story. We're still in the thick of it, and there are bound to be more challenges ahead. But I'm trying to stay hopeful. I'm trying to believe that we can get through this and come out stronger on the other side. Thank you again to everyone who has supported us through this nightmare. Your words of encouragement and advice have meant the world to us, and I don't know where we'd be without this community. I'll continue to update as things progress, but for now, we're taking things one day at a time. Final update. Hello, everyone. It's been a few months since my last update, and I wanted to come back to share some good news and finally bring some closure to this nightmare. After everything we've been through, I'm happy to report that Jake and I have finally found some peace. It wasn't easy, and there were a lot of dark days, but I think we've come out the other side stronger and more united than ever. We were able to sell our house within a few weeks of putting it on the market, which was a huge relief. We didn't get as much as we would have liked, but it was enough to pay off the mortgage and give us a fresh start. Jake and I decided to move to a small town in another state, somewhere far away from his parents and all the drama they brought into our lives. We found a cozy little house that's perfect for starting our family, and for the first time in a long time, I feel like we can finally breathe. The move was bittersweet. We left behind a lot of memories, both good and bad, but it felt like the right thing to do.